Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 19th of July, now it's 20 to 11 in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update today, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment, and I will start with Ukrainian special military operation. And First of all, I will share information about missile and drone strikes that Russian armed forces did conducted against logistical and military infrastructure of Zelensky's regime during the previous night. I did share this information on my Telegram also. And so information is that during the previous night, Russian armed forces conducted missile and drone strikes on logistical and military infrastructure of Zelensky's regime in Kiev and Kiev region, Dnipropetrovsk, Zaporozhye, Odessa, Kharkov, and Kherson regions. There are some reports that explosions was heard in Sumy region also. But what is different this time? We all know that this type of missile and drone strikes are conducted by Russian side on regular basis, but I believe previous night was the first time when Russian side strike Odessa region with immense force. Even Ukrainian media, Ukrainian officials and Telegram channels are reporting that they have not seen anything like that since the beginning of the special military operation. So if that's the case, then I believe some very significant damage was done to logistical and military infrastructure of Zelensky's regime in Odessa region. I believe during the day Russian Defense Ministry will share additional information, and of course you will see it on my Telegram page. That's when it comes to strikes during the previous night. And yet again, in Russian segment of internet, opinions are there are different opinions. Some believe that these strikes on Odessa region is kind of retaliatory strikes from Russia for terrorist attack on Crimea bridge. But very same time, many experts and channels on Telegram, for example, big channels are predicting that this is just a beginning, and Russian side will probably strike decision-making centers in Kiev also as a retaliatory measure for terrorist attack on Crimea bridge. Well, I'm quite skeptical that Russian side will strike decision-making centers in Kiev. To be honest, it did not happen when Zelensky's regime conducted drone strike on Kremlin. So I don't think Russian leadership will change its attitude or strategy, and they will attack decision-making centers in Kiev now after attack on Crimea bridge. But I guess there will be significant increase on drone and missile strikes on the military and logistical infrastructure of Zelensky's regime, and this increase will be that response that everybody is kind of waiting for. But yet again, let's wait and see. After all, I'm not a military expert, and I have no inside information from Kremlin, so who knows, maybe Putin will authorize strikes on decision-making centers in Kiev and Lvov also, who knows. In next couple of days we will probably learn more about it. Now let's talk about some other news, but first of all, let me give you a quick summary of the situation on the front line. So basically it's still operational pause in my reading of big picture all along the front line. Even though there are some fierce local scale skirmishes or local scale fights between the sides, but nothing in the scale that will influence overall situation on the entire sectors of the front. That's why I'm calling current situation operational pause. But let's go one by one through these sectors of the front. So Kherson region, it's mainly artillery duels and recon operations between the sides. We did have the report yesterday and day before yesterday that Zelensky's regime was still conducting trying at least to send additional troops or reinforcements on the left bank of the Dnieper River to reinforce these small bridgeheads that Ukrainian forces did manage to establish on the left bank of the Dnieper. And we had reports that Russian side did destroy 5 speedboats day before yesterday, and about 30 Ukrainian soldiers were neutralized during that attack. And we also have information today, reports today, that during the previous night Ukrainian forces did try to yet again send reinforcement on the left bank, and according to Russian sources, this attempt also failed. The Russian side did manage to take out not just boats of Zelensky's regime, but as a result of artillery strikes, Ukrainian forces did suffer significant losses on their bridgehead in vicinity of Antonovsky Bridge. And according to Russian sources, Ukrainian forces lost about 40 soldiers during these artillery strikes from Russian side in previous 12 to 24 hours. So even though there are some, as I said, local scale skirmishes between the sides, overall situation in the Kherson region, it's operational pause. And what I will add is that this constant attempt from Zelensky's regime to establish more and more bridgeheads on the left bank definitely indicates, in my reading of this picture, plans that indicates that Zelensky's regime do have a plan to conduct mass crossing of the Dnieper River, which will probably take place when second wave of Ukrainian counteroffensive began on this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia in Zaporozhye sector of the front line and South Donetsk sector of the front line. But big question is, will Zelensky's regime even be able to conduct its second wave of counteroffensive? Because according to Russian sources, strategic reserves of Zelensky's regime are significantly depleted, and they don't really have enough manpower and military equipment to hope for any success during this possible second wave of counteroffensive. But yet again, let's wait and see. When it comes to Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sectors of the front line, it's almost a similar situation. It's artillery duels between the sides, recon operations. Ukrainian forces constantly are trying to improve their positions in direction of Rabotina, but they are failing time after time. And I do on regular basis share on my Telegram page video footage of destroyed armored groups of Ukrainian forces that are basically sent on these suicidal missions to somehow penetrate Russian defense lines in this sector of the front. And very similar situation in South Donetsk direction. I believe Ukrainian forces just run out of steam and are losing initiative on daily basis. And well, I would not be surprised if in foreseeable future it will be Russian side that will begin offensive operations on this bridgehead between Crimea and mainland Russia, like it did happen on a local scale, of course, but still it did happen in the direction of Gulyai-Pole just a few days ago. So when it comes to Donetsk direction, it's usual hot points: Marinka, Krasnogorovka, and Avdiivka, but yet again, mainly artillery duels between the sides and local scale offensive operations that are not really influencing overall situation on this sector of the front. But initiative, I believe, is in Russian hands. Initiative is in Russian hands, and we can say very same about Bakhmut direction. Initiative is in Russian hands, and it's Russian forces that are conducting local scale offensive operations on northern and the southern flanks of Bakhmut. And same goes, of course, for northern sectors of the front from Seversk to Kupiansk. When it comes to Kupiansk, situation for Zelensky's regime is becoming desperate, really, because almost on daily basis Russian forces are managing to improve their positions and move forward. And yet again, it's still local scale offensives, but overall situation is because these offensives are taking place for quite a long time now, and Russian side are able to improve its positions for almost 2 months, if not a longer period of time. We are getting closer to a point when Russian forces probably will be in a good enough position to conduct large-scale offensive operation in direction of Kupiansk. So I believe in coming weeks we will see even more activity from Russian side in Kupiansk direction. And that's a quick summary. About overall situation on the front line. Of course, as I always do, I highly recommend the military summary channel, Alexander Mercury's channel, host of that we run, DPA War, Web Union. These channels are devoting much more time to discussion of situation on the detailed discussion of situation on the front line. And if you want to know details about these local levels clashes between the sides, then those channels are providing great information. But my channel, my format is a little bit different. It's not exactly about military conflict. It's about format is about news in general that are relevant in Russian Federation and are reported by Russian media. So let me continue now. And by the way, this morning we had a report that Zelensky's regime did also conducted a strike on Russian territory, missile strike, I believe, and I did share on Telegram this video footage, for example. As you can see, ammunition depot was hit, Russian ammunition depot on Crimea. And according to information that we are receiving, and by the way, officials not yet confirmed that it was missile strikes, but many military experts and the big names in Russian blogosphere are talking about these strikes. And according to information that they are sharing, possibly it was a Ukrainian Grom 2 missile that did hit this ammunition depot on the Crimea. And this happened in Kirovsky district in the east of Crimea. And because of these explosions, highway Tavrida was shut down. There are no reports about casualties on the ground for this moment, but according to Russian officials, and this is official by the way, 4 villages, settlements of 4 villages in close vicinity from that ammunition depot will be evacuated. And according to Russian officials, this ammunition depot was located on a training ground, a military training ground. So about 2,000 people will be evacuated for 24 to 48 hours, as long as there some ammunition is exploding on that area. And I believe head of Crimea, Sergei Aksyonov, did come out and said that Crimea has enough resources to deal with this emergency situation, and they will support local residents who may suffer, whose houses may be damaged because of these explosions, or who will be in need in any way, shape or form. So as you can see, it's not just Russian forces that are striking on military and logistical infrastructure of Zelensky's regime. Time to time, Zelensky's regime is also conducting such operations, and unfortunately this time Russian air defense systems did not manage to shut down that missile. and as a result, ammunition depot was lost, and thousands of people have to be evacuated. Let me continue now, and this is, by the way, Lentarus report, also quite interesting information. This is Lentarus report, which is based on statements of Andrei Marochko, military expert from Lugansk People's Republic, who said that Zelensky's regime is in hurry sending additional reserves in direction of Kupiansk, because situation, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, situation for Ukrainian forces on Kupiansk direction is becoming very, very difficult. And Zelensky's regime is forced now to use its strategic reserves on Kupiansk direction and the northern sectors of the front. And this is one of the reasons why I am doubting that Ukrainian forces will have enough manpower and ammunition or military equipment to conduct second wave of counteroffensive on this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia in Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sectors of the front, because as a result of Russian successful local scale offensives in the central and the northern parts of the front line, Zelensky and his military leaders are forced to disperse the strategic reserves. And if this information from Andrei Marochko is correct, then, well, it seems like Ukrainian forces will have less and less manpower on the southern sectors of the front, because reserves have been sent in the north, in direction of north. So, by the way, this is TASS News Agency's report about this. I did spoke just a few minutes ago that Russian artillery did neutralize about more than 40 Ukrainian military personnel in bridgehead that Ukrainian forces hold right next to Antonovsky Bridge. And well, I believe despite these heavy losses, Zelensky's regime will continue to send more and more troops on the left bank, or at least try, because as I said, if my reading of big picture is correct, then Ukrainian forces are preparing for mass crossing of the Dnieper River, and that's why we are seeing these small operations from Ukrainian side and attempts to establish some multiple bridgeheads on the left bank. That's preparation of the ground, in my reading, preparation of the ground for mass crossing, which may take place, as I said, during the second wave of Ukrainian counteroffensive in Zaporozhye and South Donetsk sectors of the front line, if second wave will even take place. So let's continue now. And by the way, this is also quite interesting. TASS News Agency and media, the Russian media outlets, did report that Russian T-14 Armata main battle tanks were involved in the clashes in the southern sector of the front, and Russian South group of forcing were actively using armatas. And well, once this information become available, then I believe today or tomorrow we will probably see video and photo confirmations of armata being involved in direct close range battles on the front line. And yet again, even though this tank is fourth generation and has many unique features, it's still not in the mass production. And I believe Uralvagonzavod and Russian Defense Ministry, Uralvagonzavod is main tank producer company in Russia, and Russian Defense Ministry are probably using these tanks on the front line to learn some more about strong and weak points of these tanks and make some necessary improvements when it's needed. So in mass production, tank will go even more capable than it is now. So basically these tanks is in state trail steel and are not really produced in mass. So let's continue, and RT is reporting about statement that chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of US, Mark Milley, made so his statement was about this Ukrainian counteroffensive, and he said that Kiev's push against Russian forces is far from failure. Well, Mark Milley, I did mention quite a few times that time to time Mark Milley does make some logical and understandable statements, but this is not that time. Definitely, I'm sure Mark Milley very well informed and knows that entire this so-called Ukrainian counteroffensive was catastrophic failure. There's no other words to describe that. But yet again, Mark Milley is under pressure of politicians, Biden's administration, and to justify somehow this multi-billion military aid packages for Zelensky's regime. I believe White House is pressuring US military experts and generals to come up with such a stupid statements, really, that this Ukrainian counteroffensive was far from being failure. I mean, are you serious? But, well, and by the way, I did report yesterday that latest military aid package for Zelensky's regime will be 1.3 trillion, not trillion, but billion. For now, it's still billions. So yet again, U.S. taxpayers should begin to ask some questions, man, because I'm absolutely sure money that was sent to Zelensky's regime could be used for benefit of U.S. citizens and not for enriching military-industrial complex of US, which is enough rich and enough powerful, or to reach Zelensky and his associates. But yet again, this type of statements from high-ranking officials of US and NATO member states in general definitely highlights some level of desperation that these Western elites really are, because they have to somehow justify their actions and this constant flow of money and weapons to Zelensky's regime. And they have less and less ground for such justifications. Let me continue now, and this is RBK News Agency's report about article that was written in the Telegraph. I believe that's British media outlet, and we have statements from military expert, UK military expert Robert Clark, who said that pressure on Kiev will just increase in coming weeks and months because of this not really successful, totally failed counteroffensive. And according to this expert, if Zelensky's regime won't be able to achieve any significant success before end of this year, then Western elites will find it extremely difficult to continue this constant flow of weapons and money to Zelensky's regime and find ways to justify their own actions, which I just spoke about, basically. I mean, you don't have to be like genius to realize that as time goes by, Western elites will find it more and more difficult to justify their actions. So let me continue now, and RIA Novosti is reporting. I will try to make this update as short as possible. So this is RIA Novosti's report about statements that official representative of Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, made about grain deal. And according to Zakharova, UN has about 3 months to make sure that Russian interests and Russian demands have been met in regards of grain deal. And if that's the case, then Moscow may consider to renew grain deal, to join grain deal one way or another once again. But as long as the Russian demands are not met, Russia will won't participate in this deal, and as I did said in previous updates, Russian officials, including Russian Defense Ministry, did already come up with statements that they are withdrawing from receiving any guarantees, any security guarantees to anybody that will try to enter Ukrainian ports or leave Ukrainian ports, because Russia is no longer participating in this deal. But yet again, Zelensky's regime and Western masters of Zelensky's regime had about, I don't know, quite a long time to meet Russian demands, but they did not. So I don't believe anything will change in next 3 months' time. But who knows? Let's wait and see. If Russian bank, Rossellhozbank, for example, will be reconnected to SWIFT, if that destroyed pipeline, ammonia pipeline, Tolyatti Odessa, will be reopened, and if some other Russian demands will be met, then who knows? Maybe Moscow will yet again participate in that deal. That's why Russian officials did say that they are not canceling grain deal, they are just putting some pause on that deal, just not prolonging and giving some time to Western elites to fulfill their obligations towards Russia according to that deal. And if they will meet Russian interests then and demands, then grain deal will probably continue. And this is gonna be last news for today's short, I believe, update. Yes, quite short update. Kommersant newspaper is writing about situation in Russian economy and weakness, constant weakening of Russian ruble. And according to this article, Central Bank of Russian Federation is in quite difficult position right now, because some stronger decisions have to be made, because a weak ruble maybe was beneficial for some point up to now, but if ruble will continue to fail, then it will become a significant issue. It will cause inflation. It will and eventually it may even influence Russian GDP growth. But same time, if central bank will raise interest rates significantly to somehow slow down fail of the ruble, then that measure, that step also may influence negatively rise of Russian GDP. So some difficult decisions have to be made, and well, to be honest, me personally, even though I'm not financial expert, I think Russian central bank will probably rise interest rates, but just slightly, maybe 0.25 point, which not gonna be enough to slow down fail of the ruble. But yet again, weak ruble is still beneficial for big business, for business that are oriented on export. Weak ruble is beneficial for federal budget and regional budgets, really, because as a result of exchange of foreign currencies, budgets are receiving much more liquidity in rubles. So, well, let's see if my prediction is correct, but I believe if central bank has to choose between weakening of ruble and huge increase or significant increase in interest rates, then I believe central bank will choose ruble to become a little bit weaker. From these two bad choices, I mean, weak ruble probably are less devastating that for economy than significant decrease in interest rates. But yet again, I'm not financial expert. I'm just making prediction, but well, after all, it's good that experts are talking about this topic, because well, in last 3 to 5 months, Russian ruble did lose significantly its strength. That's fact. And this is it for now, and this is it for now. But by the way, I should mention that even though ruble is becoming weaker and weaker, almost on weekly basis now, inflation, for some reason, inflation is not increasing in extreme terms, which is surprising to me. But yet again, it's only a matter of time when fail of the ruble will definitely become a driver for increase of inflation. It's just logical, isn't it? So this is it for now. I hope you will find this short update interesting, and if so, please hit that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like. More likes and comments definitely make change and do influence on algorithm, YouTube algorithm, and with more comments and likes, I do have more chances to reach wider audience. And if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Telegram, Facebook, Twitter, or any other platform that you are active on. And if you think this channel is interesting, has some potential, useful, and deserves to exist, please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, buy me a coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page, on which I do constantly some extra content. You will see links under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.